Hello, my dear viewers, and welcome to day 8 of the 12 Days of Death. And it's time for a wardrobe change. I thought I would get dressed into something a little bit more festive. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to the next episode. Kirby versus Boo. This is going to bring back some memories because this was a really old death battle I talked about in one of my really old videos from back in the day, back when I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But anyway, Kirby versus Boo. Now this is one I've constantly called out for being shit, mostly because of the matchup. And I still stand by that the matchup is garbage. However, looking back at it with hindsight, it's not as bad as I originally thought. Now keep in mind, this was before I was reviewing Death Battle, so this was before I was looking at a Death Battle as the overall package, rather than just saying, well, the matchup is shit, so therefore the whole episode is shit, or the results are shit, so therefore the whole episode is shit. I've kind of grown from that mentality. However, some versus debaters just go off of, well, the results are wrong, so therefore the whole episode is terrible. But I still can't ignore the matchup, and the first time I talked about Kirby vs. Boo, I did a very shit job explaining why this matchup doesn't work. So I want to do that correctly. So the reason why this matchup doesn't work is because Kirby is pretty much indestructible. He is far too broken for Boo to handle. Now, I know I'm probably going to get a lot of DBZ fans jumping down my throat and possibly Seth the Programmer, but the reality is Kirby is just too fucking powerful. He is busted beyond repair. Remember how I explained that Link was far too broken for someone like Cloud to handle? Well, the same rules apply here. In fact, in regards to Nintendo characters, as broken as Kirby is one of the only characters from Nintendo I could see matching Link's power realistically, because this little shit is damn near indestructible. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, what I mean by Kirby is indestructible, I mean it in the sense that he cannot be killed through conventional means. Think of it like a pseudo Toon Force user, which are absolutely indestructible. Kirby is just like that. Now, while I have had people tell me that Kirby is a Toon Force user, from the research I was able to do, I wasn't able to find any hard evidence that he had access to the Toon Force, but I'll let you guys figure out if that's the case or not, because at least from my research, I can't figure that out. I did have someone send me a manga panel that supposedly proves that he is a Toon Force user. I'll put it up, but I'm not certain of the validity of this manga. But long story short, Kirby absolutely cannot be killed. It was even stated that even if Kirby's ghost is removed from his body, he can still fight you. The only way to get rid of Kirby is through existence erasure. That is how powerful Kirby is. Unless you can wipe him from existence, you can't kill him no matter how hard you try. He can tank almost any attack. He has had planets blow up in his face. He has been squashed like nothing. Almost anything you can throw at Kirby will do absolutely nothing to him. So someone like Boo does not have the means to kill Kirby. period. So from my perspective, this is a pretty bad spite matchup, because what's the point of having Boo fight someone that he absolutely cannot kill? Now, sure, if you had someone who can erase him from existence, like Beerus fight Kirby, he might have a chance. However, as far as I know, Boo does not have access to the Hakai, and the Hakai did not exist around the time they did this death battle. So even if you did make the argument, well, the Hakai, well, if Boo doesn't have the Hakai, that's kind of meaningless to bring up. Now, I did have someone point out in a response video to my top 10 worst death battles that something I failed to bring up was how they did not use Super Boo in this matchup, and it was a forgotten form. Now, that is true, I did forget about Super Boo, but in my defense, I was not aware of the Super Boo form, and unless this came out in Dragon Ball Super or some fucking game, I had no awareness of this form. Because here's what you have to understand. I stopped watching Dragon Ball Z after the Cell Saga, because that's after I stopped caring. Now, I've seen a few episodes of the Boo Saga on Toonami, and I have seen a couple episodes of Super, and once I saw Frieza, I pretty much rage quit. But yeah, so I didn't know very much about the Super Boo form, but even then, I think even if you did give him the Super Boo form, it wouldn't change much here, because Boo still wouldn't be able to kill Kirby. He could try to blow him up all he wants, but none of those attacks are going to be any threat to Kirby. So yeah, from my perspective, I view this as a really poor matchup in that regard. Now sure, I guess if you look at it from the other perspective, this kind of makes sense on paper. Boo versus Kirby does seem like a pretty good matchup, but from my perspective, I don't think that it is. Now sure, you could say the other reasons why work, but I say no, because what is the point of a death battle? I've said this in the past. What is the point of a death battle if you know who is going to win and you know that the opponent has no chance in hell? I have mentioned this before, and this is a perfect example of what I've been talking about. But that's just the matchup. Now, I'll leave some links in the description of some videos that debunk the results or analysis of this fight, if you're interested in that, because when I called this one of the worst death battles ever, I was looking at this from the perspective of results and analysis, which is something I don't do anymore. I now look at the overall package. So, let's move along to the fight and the animation. The fight and animation is good for sprite animation standards, which really isn't saying much. But one thing that did kind of frustrate me, well, I didn't even say it frustrated me, it was just kind of weird, was they kept using these very crude facial expressions. I'm guessing they wanted to use it to add to the comedy aspect of this fight, but I don't understand why, because if you wanted to have more control over the animation, just use your own custom animation death battle. I don't know how many times I'm gonna have to tell you this until you get it into your thick skulls death battle. Use custom animation. You know why sprite sheets are a bad idea? Because sprite sheets are heavily limited. But if you want more control, well, you're kind of fucked. This is why I'm not a big fan of sprite death battles, because you don't have the same level of control you would have had you just used custom animation, and then you end up making these very crude facial expressions that just look really, really bad at times. Now, outside of that, the animation works fine. Now, outside of that, the comedy surprisingly isn't that bad. Usually the comedy in Death Battle is pretty bad. Now make no mistake, the comedy in the analysis portion is just as annoying and cringe as you'd expect. But the comedy in the actual fight itself does work for the most part, my favorite part being where Kirby face palms. That was kind of funny. So I will say this, for once Death Battle made a comedy-based fight that wasn't total cringe or just irritating as hell, i.e. Deadpool versus Pinkie Pie. So that's good, at least they got the fight down for the most part. Although the analysis and results at times are somewhat questionable because they decided to use really weird feats to scale Kirby, like the frying pan feat from the anime. I don't know why they felt the need to use that feat to scale Kirby, because I'm sure there's much better feats they could have used. And I have heard some people say in other videos that using the frying pan feat is just a very weird way to scale Kirby. And I do somewhat agree with it. It's just a very weird feat because the feat is Kirby hitting a creature with a frying pan and then it flies over the sun and comes back within a few seconds. Now, I don't know why you would choose that. I assume they were trying to use this feat to scale both his strength and speed, but again, there were probably better ways to go about this. So that was odd, and for the most part, outside of weird stuff like that, the analysis seemed to be okay. However, they did forget certain forms like Super Boo, which was, I guess, not very good. But then again, who knows if that form even existed at the time. Next, we might as well look at the music, which for the most part is good. I'm not going to complain too much. They just use a variety of music from Kirby and I assume Dragon Ball Z. I'm not 100% certain. I don't always know where Death Battle gets some of their music from. But the music is fine. Sure, it could be better. Actually, no, fuck it. The music is perfectly fine. I'm not even going to bother with that. So, music is fine. Overall, I want to say this is a bad Death Battle purely on the aspect that this is a poor matchup because Boo can't defeat Kirby. But then again, this isn't as bad as I thought it was looking at it overall, not just from the single aspect of, oh, the matchup is bad, so therefore the whole thing sucks. Because though that is a big problem, when I look at everything else, there is some good stuff here that I can't ignore. The music is good, the comedy in the fight is good, and for a sprite animation Death Battle, this isn't that bad, and this is a pretty long one too, almost 6 minutes long, so at least there's a lot going on in this fight. It's not just a little 1 minute to 2 minute little ripoff where they don't even bother, which I hate it when Death Battle does that. Like when they did Captain America versus Batman, and the fight was like barely even 2 minutes long, and it was just beyond short and pathetic. So, I'm not certain what to do here, guys. I mean, I guess what I will do is give it a 5 out of 10, because looking back at it, it's not as insulting as I thought, outside of some of the questionable stuff in the analysis, forgetting the Super Boo form, and the really, really weird animations. This isn't that bad, although I still maintain that the matchup is a huge fucking issue here. And I know I'm probably gonna get some Dragon Ball Z fans jumping down my throat saying that you're highballing or wanking Kirby, you don't know shit about Dragon Ball Z, Boo can absolutely kill Kirby, blah blah blah. I made my point clear enough. Boo cannot kill Kirby through conventional means, unless he has an existence erasure ability. Please don't come to my comment section wasting my fucking time, Dragon Ball Z fans. Do you understand that? Now, well, actually, you know what, now that I think about it, I'm gonna drop it down to a 4 because of that very cringe segment where they shill for pop figures being sold by Funimation. And you know what, that's something that really didn't age well, Death Battle. I know they weren't able to know about Funimation going full retard a couple years later, but you know what, I'm just gonna say that's something that didn't age well, and the segment was really cringe, and Funimation can go fuck themselves. So I'll drop it down to a 4. I will be fair and say this isn't as bad as I originally thought it was, but it's not really all that great either. But let me know what you think of this death battle in the comments below, and I'll see you guys around for day 9.